All right, look, this year in February 2026, we got permission domains going live on the XRP ledger. All right. Shout out to Nick for this interview, right? Of Joel Katz. So many things are now opening doors, the services that they were able to offer to these institutions, to even to me and you, right? Peer to peer. A lot of people had the argument that we didn't have the ability, we didn't have the technology, guys, right? But things like ZK knowledge, things like permission domains, right? They are providing the ability for the average person, regular people, right? Peer to peer, to now use the XRP ledger. The XRP ledger is still a lot more massive, a lot bigger than we all imagine. Okay, guys, this is the one-stop shop. This is the best network to participate in, right? To transact in my opinion. All right, let's get to the interview.
In my side, and a thorn in the side of Ripple for a long time has been the fact that we can't use the XRP Ledger DEX for our own payments products. Like this just, I want to rip my hair out. So like it's obvious that we would do that, and it's frustrating that endlessly frustrating that we can't. And the primary obstacle is that Ripple is a regulated institution,
Right.
and if our trade like passes through a terrorist or somebody who's sanctioned by the United States, it doesn't matter whether we knew or could have known, or basically if there's a chance that that can happen, we just can't do it.
Right.
And so we have not been able to use the DEX. And it's just, and so permission domains will enable a domain in which you have to prove you're not a terrorist to get into that domain. And so that will mean that like lots of ordinary people, I made the joke at my other presentation, I said, all of us could get into that. Probably not that guy in the second row, yeah. That joke killed earlier. But I mean, the idea is that these will not be just institutions to institutions. Why put that on the XRP ledger, right? That should be on a private ledger. But the idea is that ordinary people will be in these permission domains. They'll be able to provide liquidity. They'll be able to consume liquidity. They'll be able to arbitrage between inside and outside the domain. And finally, enterprises that want to use the DEX to settle payments and move assets and provide liquidity on the DEX will be able to do so. So I think it's going to be very significant as part of the sort of wave of institutional adoption. And those higher flows and those higher volumes on the DEX are going to bring value to all of the developers on the ledger.
Yeah. I'm a little biased in being a fan of permission domains because I wrote the spec.
The very first vision for permission domains goes back to 2014.
Oh, really?
We had this idea for something we called regulatory domains. And the idea was that an account could put itself in a sort of a jurisdiction, and that could control things like maybe there's a court that could order some accounts frozen or order, and you can't currently do that with XRP because it has no issuer. But you could opt into a regulatory domain that had some authority that could do that, and it could have rules about how assets can move in and out. And there was never really a good product market fit for that because it wasn't solving a real problem that anyone had. Was permission domains, it really is a problem that institutions that want to use the DEX can't. That's frustrating. And when you have a technology that solves a problem and the people who have that problem can't use it, it just bothers me.
I guess no idea is really truly original if, you thought of the same thing 10 years before I did.
Well, there are some big differences. I think it's more aimed at a very specific problem, and it's more of a decentralized. It's less of a compromise of because it does seamlessly because people can be in a domain and still interact with people outside that domain. It's not like they don't take anything away. Whereas the original